Hello everyone, in this video we'll continue our exploration of string methods and dive into more advanced techniques for manipulating and transforming strings in Python. This video will have a bigger focus on string methods that have to do with lists, but we will learn another useful method at the end, which will go along nicely with the dot replace method we learned before. Let's start by introducing the dot split method, a versatile tool for splitting a string into a list of substrings based on a specified delimiter. By using dot split, you can separate words, phrases, or any other elements in a string based on a defined separator. Here's an example to demonstrate the usage of dot split. We can have sentence equal to hello, Python is amazing. And we can have words equal sentence dot split. And so dot split actually returns a list, so words is equal to a list. And then we can print words, and we can see that it's a list because when we run it, you can now use this list of separated words to do many things, like removing a specific word with the dot remove method, or adding a word in between them with the dot insert method, and a lot of other list methods we've learned in previous videos. By default, the dot split method splits a string by spaces, but you can actually split it by something else. So if I had something like this, if I had a string with ones in between it, right? So I said, hi, one, how are you, with ones, right? You'd put one in here. The argument you put in dot split is whatever you're splitting it by. And so here we get hi, how are you, and it doesn't include the delimiter. The delimiter is this argument where you can put what you're splitting it with. And these can be any string. You can have a v or something, right? Put a v like this, and it's just gonna split the string by these. So if we run this, we still get hi, how are you, because it's splitting the string. And so even if you just wanted to split the string, if you said hello world like this, a lot of times you just do this with a comma and then a space. Or if there's not a space, you'd not do a space, but you do comma and a space, and then you get hello and world separate. The dot join method allows us to concatenate a list of strings into a single string using a specified delimiter. It's like the opposite of dot split. This method is especially useful when you have a list of strings that you want to combine into a coherent sentence or paragraph. For example, you might want to combine all the words in the previous examples list after adding or removing a word, so you have the string again. So here's an example. So we can set this as Python is amazing, and the dot split would just be a space, but by default it's a space, so we don't even need anything here. And now we get words, right? And so you can see that this is the list. But now, if we wanted sentence 2, right? We had sentence 2. This would be equal to space in a string dot join words. And this seems a little confusing, but what you're doing here is you're actually not doing words dot join like you might think, because you might expect it to be like this, right? Because that's how it was with dot split. But for this one, you put the delimiter as the string that's calling dot join, and then inside dot join, you put the list. And so what this is doing is it is joining each item in this list with a space. And so when we print sentence 2, now we get Python is amazing because we've added a space in between each of them. If we just did an empty string dot join, it would be Python is amazing with no spaces. We could do one like we did before, and it could be any character. Here's an example using both dot split and dot join for language processing. In this example, we will use a lot of the skills you learned in previous videos. We'll use strings, string methods, integers, while loops, if statements, indices, string concatenation, lists, list methods, and string formatting. I know it seems like a lot, but we'll go through it step by step so you can understand it. It's always good to have little refresher projects to sharpen your knowledge of Python. So let's say we have a string containing a list of programming languages separated by commas, and we wanted to display them nicely like some popular programming languages are Python, Java, etc., with correct grammar and everything. And there are some spaces we need to remove that are in between some words, along with the fact that some of the words are lowercase when they really should be capitalized. So we'll do Python, then a bunch of spaces, Java, and then JavaScript with no space in between here, Swift, all lowercase, Ruby, Go, and then we'll do C++. So as you can see, this is not good grammar at all. Correct English grammar would be like this. But this, let's say maybe like a user typed this in or something and they put a bunch of spaces, right? So they did a bunch of spaces that aren't supposed to be there. Over here they didn't put a space like they should have, and they didn't capitalize some of the words. So we need to fix that, and we want to display it like this. Some popular programming languages are, and then this list but with good grammar. So we'll first split the string into individual language names using the comma as the delimiter. So we'll set language list equal to languages string dot split, and we'll use a comma as the delimiter. So we're splitting it by each comma because each one is separated by a comma. Next, we'll use a while loop to remove any leading or trailing white space from each language name. So we can set cleaned languages equal to an empty list. This list will get appended to in the following while loop we'll create. It'll contain each language without a comma or anything. So that's what I mean when I say cleaned. It just means that we've fixed it. We get Python, we get Java, JavaScript, no commas, no spaces. And then we can set index to 0. This index variable will be used in our while loop. It'll be the index of the list that we are currently on in the while loop. It's similar to the count variable we used in the while loop video, but we're using it actually for indices. So we'll say while index is less than the length of languages list. So we want it to stop once it reaches the end of the list. So we don't want this while loop to go longer than the list because then it wouldn't make sense. And then we can set language equal to languages list and then refer to index dot strip. We set a language variable, and when I say language, we're talking about the current language we're dealing with in this list, so the current word, and it will be the index of the languages list we are currently on. So every time we go through this while loop, we'll write the code in a second for this, but index will get incremented by 1. So for each new index, right, it gets incremented by 1, so we're dealing with another word. So we could put variables in this index section. We don't have to just put numbers. And then dot strip, if you remember, it removes all white space from the beginning of a string. And if it helps you, you could just do language equals language dot strip like this. This is just the same line of code but in 2 different lines. This one's just setting it to the list index and then stripping it. This one, we just do it all in 1 line. Now we will append the new cleaned word that has no spaces around it to the cleaned languages list. So we'll do cleaned languages dot append language. Lastly, we will increment index by 1 so that the next iteration of the loop will deal with the next word to avoid an infinite loop dealing with the same exact word. Alright, so let's go over this while loop again, because sometimes when beginners are dealing with loops, they get a little bit confused. So we have an empty list at the top that will contain each word without spaces or commas around them. And we have this index variable, which will tell the while loop which index of the languages list we are dealing with. Next, we start the while loop. While the index is less than the length of the list, we will use the dot strip method on every word in the list and then append it to the cleaned languages list. It knows which word to edit because we're referencing each word by index, which is added by 1 each time. So instead of using straight up integers in our indexing, we just used a variable. Lastly, we increment index by 1, so it moves on to the next item in the list. Once the index is incremented to a number higher than the length of the list, the while loop will stop, since there are no more indices in the list. Next, we'll convert each language name to title case, so meaning we'll just capitalize the first letter of each word. So title case languages is equal to an empty list, so this is another list we're doing, and then we set index back to 0. And we'll do another while loop. This one is just like before. We will set a while loop based on the length of the words in the list. So while index is less than the length of clean languages, we will set language equal to the current word in the list, so cleaned languages index, and then this time we're capitalizing them. Next, we append the current word to the title case languages list, so dot append language, and then increment index by 1, just like last time. So now we can test to see if our program is working so far. It's always a good idea to test your program while you're writing it, so you can find errors quickly instead of dealing with them all at the end. So let's print out the title case languages list to see if everything worked out. Alright, everything worked perfectly. We have managed to capitalize every word. There are no spaces or commas, so everything's working. So now we can delete this print statement. Now that we know everything is working, we can combine the language names into a new sentence. So we can set index back to 0 again. New sentence will equal an empty string that we will add to during the while loop. And we'll say while index is less than the length of title case languages. This is because the first time we're using languages list. The second time we're using the new list, cleaned languages that was created in this while loop. And this time we're using title case languages that we have created. And so each time we are doing a more improved list for this program. And for every item in the list, we will check to see if the index is not the last index by seeing if it's less than the length of the list minus 1. So if index is less than the length of title case languages minus 1. So again, this is checking to see if it's not the last index yet by just subtracting it by 1. So if it's less than the length of title case languages minus 1, so 1 less than that. And the reason we're doing this is because when you're doing a list in English, you don't do apples, bananas, strawberries. You do apples, bananas, and strawberries. And so we want to check that so that we can put the and there. So if it's not the last item, we will concatenate or add the current word with a comma and a space. So title case languages, index, plus, and then this. The plus equal sign just adds something to a string, concatenates it, so we're adding this current item in the list to this. And we're doing a comma after it so that it turns into a list. Actually, we should put a space here. And then if it is, so else, so this means if it is the last item, we will add the word and to the last word. So we're to do the exact same thing, except we are adding and first with a space at the end, and then title case languages index. And then down here outside of the while loop, we just increment index again. This might look a bit intimidating at first, but it's essentially going through the list and creating a comma-separated string with correct grammar. The if statements check to see if it's the last item. That's all this if statement is doing. So down here, so you can see what happened, right? We can print a new sentence. And so when you saw the last list last time, it had each capitalized word in it. Now this just created a new version of the original string by taking each item, putting a space and a comma, and then for the last one, just putting and. So we're almost done. All we have to do is output the new sentence. We'll use f-string formatting to do this, so we will print some popular programming languages are, and then the sentence we created above. So we'll do print f, like this, some popular programming languages are. In the curly braces, we'll do new sentence, and then a period at the end. So after writing the string, we just put new sentence in the f-string formatting brackets. And remember to put the f before the quotation marks, not inside it. And so lastly, we run this, and it says some popular programming languages are Python, Java, JavaScript, Swift, Ruby, Go, and C++. So this is the biggest example I've ever done in this course. So I'll do another brief explanation. We basically start with a string containing a list of programming languages with bad grammar. Then we use the .split method to split the string into individual names based on the comma. And next we create a while loop to remove any leading or trailing white space. Then we use another while loop to convert each language name to title case. And then we create a third one to combine the title case languages into a new sentence, separated by commas, with the word and everything with good grammar. Now I know that you could technically do the work of these 3 while loops in one loop, but I wanted to get you familiar with while loops, writing while loops, and get used to the things that you can do inside of them. The .find method allows us to search for the first occurrence of a substring within a string and returns its index. It's helpful when you need to locate specific substrings or patterns within a larger text. As you know, the .replace method enables us to replace occurrences of a substring with a different value, allowing for efficient text manipulation and modification. Here's an example. We can set sentence equal to hello, Python is amazing. Then we can set index equal to sentence dot find Python. And we can set new sentence equal to sentence dot replace amazing and then incredible. Now we can just print, for example, index, and then we print new sentence. So here we get 7, and then here we get hello, Python is incredible. What .find does is it actually returns the index of the occurrence in the string. And that's actually really useful, because if we wanted to, for example, just remove that section or do something with this, with that index that it starts at, you can do that. So with .find, you can easily get the index of a section, and then as you know with .replace, you start with what you're replacing and then you do what you're replacing it with. Congratulations, you've now expanded your knowledge of advanced string methods in Python. By mastering these techniques, you'll have a powerful toolkit at your disposal for manipulating and transforming strings in Python. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more Python videos. If you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, feel free to leave a comment below.